folks, welcome to my Peterborough home. Teresa speaking, and I'd like to welcome you to making binding. Now, binding for a quilt is not very hard at all. If you saw my last video, we made a double-size quilt out of cheater panels, and I hope you can see some of that. So now we need to make the binding. Now, the outside border's green, so I've chosen green for the binding. Now this is just a queen size sheet that I got from a thrift store, and they are great handy things to pick up for quilting. They're great for backs, they're binding, borders, doing inside work for the quilt top. So what I've got here is enough to make some binding, and it's quite lengthy, the binding strip. So I think I only need about 5 strips. And to make binding, you need strips that are 2.5 inches long. To know how much you need, you measure the length of your quilt times the width and double it by 2. And that'll give you the number of inches that you need in binding. If your fabric is 45 inches wide, you divide 45 inches into the number of inches of your quilt, and that'll tell you how many strips you need to cut from 45-inch wide fabric. But because my fabric is wider than that, I know that I only need about 5 strips. So I'm going to go ahead and cut them. Now remember, they're 2.5 inches wide. And you can use scissors. If you have a ruler, just draw a line with a pencil, preferably a white pencil crayon, and that'll show up. And then you can cut your binding with your scissors. If you have a rotary cutter and a ruler, then that works the quickest. And it'll cut through quite a few layers. I think I've got about 6 or 8 layers here that it's cutting through. There we go. I've got my 5 strips of binding. Now, I'm going to show you how to splice them together. Okay, here we are at the ironing table. Pretend that my pattern side of my binding is on the bottom. You always want that facing on the bottom. Okay, and you take your binding and you fold it from one edge halfway into the middle. And you take the other edge and you fold it into the middle. And just holding it with your fingers, bring your iron down and iron the 2 center seams closed. You just go along and bring them to the middle as best you can. You don't have to be perfect. See? Now that's closed like that. Then the next step is you're going to fold it over one more time, lining up your edges, and you're going to iron that closed. Like so. And you end up with a 3/8 inch binding from a 2.5 inch strip. You open it up, you put your fabric in the middle, and I'll show you that. Let's pretend that this is our quilt top, and we want to bind this edge here. we just take our binding and it fits in there like that, and you sew along the edge and you have a finished seam. Now here I've got some more strips. I thought I'll use different colors so you can maybe see better how to do the binding. So you take your first strip, you lay it down with your right side up. You take your second strip and you lay it perpendicular with the right side down, so both right sides are facing together. And then you're going to sew a line along this pin mark from corner to corner. Draw a diagonal line. So let me just do that. And here you can see I've drawn the diagonal line. I'm going to trim off all but 1/4 of an inch. Now you can use your rotary cutter or scissors, whatever you have, and then open it up, and presto, you've got your binding sewn together. So they're 2.5 inch strips. I'll show you one more time. There's the right side facing up. We'll pretend this is a print, and I'm putting right sides together. Now remember, you want to cut off your salvages. You don't want them sewn into your quilt at any time. Where'd my pin go? And I'm going to sew a pin line, a sewing line along where my pin is. A diagonal line from here to here. Okay. Trim off all but 1/4 of an inch. And there's your binding sewn together. Now it just needs to be ironed down. Now I'm just doing this one for demonstration purposes. If I was really making an actual binding, I would continue on to this end and I would add on more strips. But let's go over to the ironing board and I'll show you what to do next. Now we're going to iron our binding. First, I like to take the seams and iron them flat. Okay, and we'll iron this one as well. Now, we'll go back to the beginning. We fold the top into the middle and the bottom into the middle. Just sort of finger press it with your fingers. Hold it like that, and then slowly as you go along with your iron, just line them up to the middle. Like so. Right along, put them to the middle. You try to get them to meet as perfect as you can. And it helps if you have steam on your iron. It just seems to work much better that way. Okay, then we go back to the beginning and we iron it in half, lining up your edge. Just iron it in half. Sorry you can't see that part. But there you go. There's our binding. And it's all ready for the inside of our quilt. Okay, so that's all there is to it. I hope you learned something from this tutorial. And please watch my other videos that I have coming up. Bye for now.